Stellar is an open source technology project that essentially is providing a new decentralized and digital infrastructure for the global financial system. So what that means is, Stellar enables money to move between institutions like banks or money transfer companies and also individuals through this new peer-to-peer open source blockchain-based platform. We can also call this a distributed ledger. And on Stellar, transactions from anywhere in the world, for example, Los Angeles to Hyderabad, are executed in less than 5 seconds and cost very, very little. In fact, you can do about 100,000 transactions on Stellar for 1 penny. So when you think about how money moves across the world, particularly things like cross-border payments, Stellar has a lot of advantages for making those types of payments a lot faster and a lot cheaper for everyone. And then also it's an open financial project, meaning it's not a proprietary system. Anybody can join or use the Stellar network. It's open source, so all of the code is publicly available, and we actively support new developers and engineers contributing to that code base, even outside my company, the Stellar Development Foundation. So open source financial infrastructure.
Okay, so to put it very simply, I think Stellar is trying to create an open source system that will make moving money as easy as email. There have been many attempts in this direction, and whenever people think about distributed ledger, they think about Bitcoin.
Yeah, Stellar does have some very important distinctions from Bitcoin. So I think the most important one is Stellar is really focused on leveraging the existing financial infrastructure because that's where people have money right now. You and Swati, you hold rupees or you hold dollars, when you're in the United States. And so what Stellar wants to do is actually represent those balances and assets on a decentralized ledger as digital rupees and digital dollars that can then be exchanged or sent as payments very quickly across the ledger. We also have our own native cryptocurrency that is kind of similar to Bitcoin in that it's a digital money. It isn't anything that's redeemed in the real world. It's a cryptocurrency, but Stellar is a multi-asset ledger. From its foundations, we're not kind of forcing or asking people to adopt a new type of money just to get the benefits of using the blockchain itself.
Okay, so I think that that clarifies things a little bit. In other words, what you're saying is you are agnostic about what currencies people are going to hold and what currencies they want to move. You are creating a system that just makes it easy to move money. Now, for instance, in India, we have created this digital infrastructure over the last decade or so. That is working really well. I mean, the UPI system that we have now allows me to transfer money instantaneously from me to my niece or to my friend immediately. But I think what you're bringing is, what happens if I leave India?
Exactly.
What if we go from one country to the other, the cross-border? That has not happened yet. So you're saying you're agnostic. If I want to move money from India to the US or US to China or to Russia, Stellar is agnostic, and not only currency, you would allow people to move other digital assets as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep, that's a great way of putting it. And I'm actually a really big fan of UPI and the India stack approach. And so, exactly as you said, when we think about Bitcoin is just like new network, new money. If you want to get the benefits, you get on the Bitcoin network and you use Bitcoin. Stellar, the key word is interoperability. What Stellar wants to do is create a kind of a meta network that connects to every single national payments network, and not even just payment networks for banks, right? Because as we know, there's a huge amount of people who aren't inside the formal banking system that use things like mobile money minutes or other kind of non-bank financial networks. So what Stellar does is it connects all of those various networks, represents their money and their transactions on the Stellar ledger, and then allows you to move money between these networks very fast and very low cost. So it's
Very
really about
fast and
facilitating.
very low cost. I think those are two very, very important words. And it is open source, so that you're not locked into. Uh, so I'm reading every day. I pick up a newspaper or open my laptop and I see, oh, China is about to introduce its own digital yuan before the Olympics. Uh, Facebook was trying Libra, and many other people are trying this, but it hasn't really caught on to the mainstream yet. There are all these talks that digital money is coming. Do you think digital money, the way you envisaged it, that it should be as easy as email, do you think that is going to happen soon?
Yes, sooner now, kind of given the way the world is moving. But you know, when I started at Stellar 4 years ago, I thought we'd be done already. But the truth of the matter is that um, global payments infrastructure is complex. The way the habits people build around how they like to use money, they're very real. There's a comfort in knowing how to send a transaction and knowing that it will work, for example. But I do think that we're seeing continued acceleration, and I mean, even itself, when I started in 2016, this concept of a digital stable coin or a digital dollar, that didn't exist. That was such an abstract thought, and it's so real today. And there are places around the world, maybe not India or the US, but certainly places like Argentina, Venezuela, Nigeria, where we already see consumers and businesses moving quickly to these types of products because they allow remote access to a new type of asset class, a more stable type of currency that has a lot of advantages for people in those areas. So I'm really confident we are going to see the transition. Does this mean people are going to suddenly wake up tomorrow and say, I hold cryptocurrency, I'm a cryptocurrency user? No. But I think we'll continue to see fintechs, banks, financial services companies migrating their back-end infrastructure to blockchain and distributed ledgers, representing balances as digital assets, and providing cheaper, faster transactions and financial services for their customers.
Yeah. And maybe they don't even need to know what is in the backbone. Maybe they will just say, oh,
Yep.
I'm just sending money to my niece in Los Angeles. So
Absolutely.
we use email. We never say, oh, what is the system behind it? We just say, I just send an email.
Absolutely.
So we are saying we'll be able to transfer money, even little amount of money. And I think the cost there was very important issue. Stellar is providing a system in which the transaction costs are basically close to zero. And I think that is
Absolutely.
very important to be able to move small amounts of money. And that's very important for a large part of the world where small transactions matter for the poor part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The idea of micropayments or small value transactions is, at least for me personally, one of the most kind of exciting greenfield opportunities with Stellar, whether that's, transferring 50 cents for daily savings from, a rural household, or it's buying a piece of content online for, a quarter of a penny, and kind of changing advertising models or, new types of ways that we pay for online content or services through micropayments. So it's a big opportunity.
Okay, so you alluded to this a little bit. You said, especially now, I think the world is more ready. And we know we are going through this big crisis. And one of the things that's happening in this crisis is we are suddenly more aware of the digital world. Do you think this will accelerate our move to digital assets and digital movement of assets and digital movement of money?
Yeah, I do, and I think from coming from a couple different angles, and a lot of them, unfortunately, are, they're not positive. They're kind of constraining elements in the economy that I think are going to force people to change their habits, change the way they do things. But certainly, remittances as an industry is taking a huge hit right now, and it's actually quite heartbreaking. The World Bank, I believe, just this week published some research that global remittances are already down 20%, and they expect it to be lower throughout the rest of the year. And this is because migrant workers can't migrate and they can't work, right? And so many of these migrant workers are in things like hospitality or oil, et cetera. But the point being, this very important flow of capital for very important populations in the world is suddenly being hit. And not only that, there's now this desire to not physically touch money in a way that has traditionally been very much a part of that process. I get paid, I go to a money transfer company, I hand over my money, send it home. So I think there's going to be a lot of kind of forced innovation in that area, both to reduce transaction costs by the companies that provide these services themselves, and then also to be able to send payments home in different ways that maybe require, kind of less physical contact. But I also think, as I mentioned earlier, economic instability that rolls into currency fluctuations, I think are going to continue to grow the demand of things like digital dollars, digital euros, or even other variations of that haven't even been launched into the market yet. Libra itself a few weeks ago announced that it's going to be doing currency-backed stable coins as part of its project. So, excuse me. So yeah, I think the economic shock, both in terms of people that are kind of available, particularly for middle-income consumers for the first time, and then also just the changes in the cross-border payments industry itself. It's gonna really push forward the adoption of these types of products.
Okay, tell us a little bit about where Stellar is making big headways, which countries. I remember reading a news article recently which talked about a city. Was it in Nigeria or was it Kenya?
Oh, yeah, I think that may be a project associated with ACON, where yes, they I believe it's Senegal, but it may be another West African country, but yep, where they're going to use Acoin, which is their, again, issued asset on the Stellar ledger.
So are there similar projects other places in the world? Where do you see a lot of innovation happening with Stellar as the backbone?
Sure, yeah. So, one growing use case that I'm really excited about is out of Nigeria, where we've seen a lot of growth in facilitating cross-border business payments. So between Europe and Nigeria, US and Nigeria, Canada and Nigeria. So I'm very optimistic that corridor is going to continue to grow for Stellar. We're also doing a lot of similar work in Latin America, so Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. What's really great is, as any one specific project in Argentina or in Mexico kind of comes online, that actually grows the total kind of Stellar map and network. Oftentimes these companies are providing a bridge to the local payment system that can be used by third parties. So it really creates beautiful network effects, but across Latin America and Nigeria and a few other countries in Africa, we're seeing a lot of growth. Outside of the kind of payment space, though, we also continue to see a lot of growth in regulated assets. So, tokenizing securities or other types of, bond issuance, et cetera. And we at the Stellar Development Foundation have also been investing time in providing more tooling kind of on the ecosystem layer outside of Stellar before to make those types of projects even easier. So yeah, on the regulated asset side and on the payment side and some of those specific geographies, we're seeing a lot of growth.
Okay. Great, Lisa. Great to hear about all these developments. And I think you're due for a trip to India. It's been a little while since we saw you. Come and visit
Yes.
us. I'd like you to meet my students at ISB and alumni at ISB, and they would love to hear more from you. So stay well, stay healthy, and talk to you soon again.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. It's been a pleasure.